Alright, hello folks. In this episode, we're gonna listen to the OP man, Jordan Peterson, talking about communism. The title of this video is "But that wasn't real communism, socialism or Marxism." I'm only assuming he's debating here people who think that communism was never applied. It's like, yes, it was applied in many countries. And everywhere where it was applied, the consequences were, I'm gonna say, similar in the tragedy, but there are differences because the tragedy was not of the same size in different countries. For example, you take Russia and you had about, I don't know, 20 million victims. You take China, you had like 50 million, 100 million, God knows how many people died there. So you take other countries in the South America, Cuba, Colombia, and those kind of countries. The consequences were grave, but not in as high numbers as it is in the Soviet Union or in the Maoist China. And then you have countries like Albania, where I live, where it was very bad. So people were basically slaves. They were hungry all the time. They were basically starving. But the number of deaths is not published, not to my recollection. So people who say this say that communism was never applied. Yeah, it was applied, and it was always horrible. So let's listen what he has to say.
Anyways, back to the postmodern types. Well, this all was revealed in such painful detail that even the kind of closed-minded ideologue that Norman referred to just couldn't quite muster up the moral courage to keep beating the same damn drum.
I'm assuming that there was a book. Jordan Peterson usually talks about the Solzhenitsyn book, Gulag Archipelago. And so he says that in this section right here, it says that everything was given in such detail that even the stupidest fucking people cannot actually argue against it. This is what I get from what he said.
So what they did instead, being highly intelligent individuals, was play a game of sleight
highly intelligent individuals.
sleight of hand and transformed these Marxist presuppositions into postmodernism in the 1970s. And the idea basically was, well, the working class isn't going to rise up and crush the bourgeoisie because, first of all, they're getting rich, and that wasn't supposed to happen. And
yeah. So if you read the Communist Manifesto, you know that it says that the bourgeoisie exploits the bourgeoisie. The high class exploits the low class at all times. So the low class should actually have gotten poorer if that statement was correct, but it isn't.
Second, well, it sort of seemed to be a catastrophe when that occurred, let's say, in Russia. And so maybe we won't do that anymore because the working class actually isn't buying into this either, which is also a problem. Having internalized their own oppression, they wouldn't buy into the global myth of utopia. So maybe it's because they had some sense. It's certainly possible. But anyways.
Had some sense. So, meaning that people actually started using reason.
The sleight of hand was, oh, well, fine, we'll just play a different oppressor versus oppressed game, and we'll introduce identity politics.
So I see. What he's trying to say is that the identity politics that we see today in the 21st century actually had their roots in the postmodernism ideology, which was actually taken or derived from the Marxist ideology, the communist ideology. All right, let's see.
It's like, okay, you're not being oppressed because you're a member of the working class. You're being oppressed because you're a woman. Or you're being oppressed because you have an ethnicity that's outside the main paradigm, whatever that might be. Or it's because of your sexual preference or your sexual identity. Whatever places you in some manner outside the normative culture. And,
So look, let me try to describe what I understand from that statement. So what the communists do, or what they have done at least in the 20th century, is that they've tried, and successfully for the most part, they've tried to manipulate the people by telling them that you are poor but you're actually being oppressed. meaning oppressed, meaning that things have been taken away from you by force, by exploitation, meaning that you are the righteous people, or you are the good people, but the reason why you haven't been, I don't know, successful maybe, or a reason why you weren't rich, or a reason why you aren't happy, reason why you are depressed, is because of the society and the structure that it upholds. Not really because there is something else that you have done, or something else that might have happened to you. Not not necessarily yourself, but like whatever might have happened. That's not the reason. The reason is that the society is built in such a way that it's rigged to work against you, so that it exploits you, so that the rich exploit the poor, or the successful exploit the unsuccessful. And so, what I see, the transformation that has happened here in postmodernism seems to be that no longer can you apply that to the working class. You can no longer say that you are poor because the rich are exploiting you. You can no longer say that because the poor are getting richer, as he said. But you are now in pain, so to say, if there is something bad happening to you in any of the topics that he discussed, but I'm sure in many other topics. I haven't actually read any postmodernist book, but from his statement, what I understand is that the postmodernists say that the reason why you are in this pain is because society is rigged against you. So instead of taking the working class, they now have anything else, literally, like just anything that makes people upset. They are taking it under their politics. This is what I understand.
No, the thing is, the postmodernists, you might think, well, your culture is good for something. It gives you a hierarchy of value. It rewards competent people. It gives you a direction so you can climb up, because otherwise everything's leveled to nothing, and then why do anything? They don't care about any of that. They don't believe that there's any such thing as competence. They don't believe that there's any such thing as up. This is all.
But why would you believe it? This is what I usually think whenever I hear the social theorist. I don't know how to say, the people who talk about society, that say, I believe this way works. No, I believe this other way works. You don't have to believe. Put it in practice and see the results. Why do you have to believe that there is competence? There's no need for faith. You believe things that you don't know for sure. Why would you believe?
Postmodernism wipes all of that out. And so when the postmodernists analyze a text, all they care about is how it privileges the position of the author and who it oppresses. And that's the only thing they regard as real. And they don't believe in grand unifying narratives. They don't believe that there's a Canadian identity. They don't believe that there's an American identity. They don't believe that there's a Western identity. They don't believe that value structures exist, or if they are, they're irreplaceable with some other value structure. They certainly don't believe that they have any biological grounding, that there's any such thing as a human being. It's all socially constructed.
Well, that's super weird. If that's the case, that would be super weird. So it looks a lot like the only facts that they have is whatever sentiment that they are experiencing, and that is all seen from the perspective of the person who is in pain. So the person who is in pain for any type of reason is actually seen as the virtuous one, whilst literally nothing else is valued, nothing else is seen as real, which is very weird, because this is usually what happens. Part of it is usually what happens with depressed people. So depressed people reach a level so low. This is my understanding, of course, right? So depressed people reach a level so low that they can no longer experience happiness. So it's like what I see them doing here, it would be taking only pain as the real true thing in life. So nothing else matters. If you are a person, if you are, let's say, George Martin, who has written Game of Thrones, if you are that guy, then all you are doing is oppressing, I don't know, whatever other author that didn't make it, or maybe women in the Game of Thrones show, or I don't know, So he's not actually valued as a human being. He's only seen as a as a person who is abusing pain. This is how I understand this statement.
Which is really convenient if what you want to do is be the author of an entirely social constructed utopia that you can run. And then when the Marxists say,
Like a cult.
well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means, if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good.
But how could everything, like, look, here's something. For example, I've discussed this with a couple of people, and the theory that Marxism is a utopian ideal, a utopian idea, it's like a utopian society or whatever, that it's a perfect civilization. I think it's actually, well, I think it's actually misunderstood. So the Marxist idea of the society does not initially come forth from the fact that people are evil. That's I personally don't think that that's the point. So when people say that I am entirely good, what they mean in relation to the Marxist ideology, I assume, is that they mean that the whole society needs a restructuring because there are people who are not like me. There are people who have corruption or evil in them. But the point is that people who say this, that they are entirely good, or even people who say that they are entirely evil, they have not taken human nature under account, and human nature is one that makes mistakes. It's not the point to say that the whole society is one way or another. Like every individual makes mistakes. This is without a doubt. It's like there are no people that don't make mistakes. The point is, why would you say that the whole society should be good or should be evil? This is a statement that I don't quite get. So what I think is that that individuals, people themselves, should work on themselves to make the environment better. So it's not that you need to appoint who is good to look up to someone or who is evil to look down on them. The point is to work, to improve. Why would you say that I am good but the rest is evil, so I'm the righteous one? Why would that statement make sense? You are good now, you were bad before, you can make mistakes, you can recuperate, you can go to jail then come out. These things exist in the Constitution. It's not like I'm making them up. People make mistakes, they come up. In respect to the degree of the mistake that they make, they take the punishment from the law. But it's not like people don't make mistakes, or that there are people who don't make mistakes, which are actually the chosen ones. This is definitely like a cult, for real. I've heard other people say it, but when I hear Jordan Peterson explain it here, it really gives me the vibes of a cult.
It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them, along with their families and millions of other people. So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
So the idea doesn't work. The idea of communism doesn't work. This is what he's saying here. Even if, which is not actually true, but even if it was so that you would be correct in your professionalism or your heart, there would be other people who would see the opportunity, psychopaths really. There would be other psychopaths who would see the opportunity that take you out. So I don't think that I personally don't really argue whether communism was right or wrong. I know definitely that it was wrong. I don't see the argument. I've read the book. I know what is being spoken. I know what is being tried to bring forth, and I don't really think that it's it's like looking at, I don't know if you have ever seen Dexter, the neighborhood psychopath serial killer. They're making the show again for him. I really like the first 4 seasons, I think. It was a cool movie, but it's kind of the same as looking at Dexter's diary. So what do we do today? We hunt this person, we shoot them down. Like that, but for the whole society. I don't know why would anybody be pro Marxist ideology. It's very weird. Very, very weird. But yeah, the ideology doesn't work because it's not supposed to work. I remember from the book, I have a whole series here in YouTube that I've done, but I remember from the book that there are two key moments said in the Communist Manifesto. One was that the whole history of the world up until this point, and he used the word hitherto. I don't know why you would say hitherto, but the whole history of the world up until this point is class struggles. Class struggles means that the rich always have exploited the poor and will continue to do so. It's like without doubt, but that's not true. And the second point is that communism can be defined as abolishment of private property, which for anybody who understands what those words means is that's like enslavement. You can no longer own a car, you can no longer own a phone, clothes, a house, nothing. Everything goes to the state. So it's like if you read these two statements without even elaborating on the book itself, but if you read only these two statements, why would you think that something good is going to come out of it? It's very weird, but let's hear what he has to say.
So there's.
Yeah, okay, round of applause. I don't think they should applaud though. This is like, it's not a show, man. They're maybe expressing gratitude, but I wouldn't clap, like for real. He's being serious.
So, you think, well, why are these postmodernists doing what they're doing?
What's that sort of notebook in his hand? What is that? Does he has like bullet points in it?
Why do they oppose the patriarchy? Here's a question. Why don't the feminists complain about Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I've actually made this point, man. So I was looking, I think it was like 2-3 years ago, something like that. I was on LinkedIn. I think it was either LinkedIn or Facebook, one of these two. And so I was looking, scrolling past, and I saw that Finland's prime minister is a strong feminist, and she wants to act to empower women. But I was immediately like, in Finland, what kind of rights are being removed from women in Finland? Like, it's not the same that we want to fight for women's rights and we are doing it in a country or in an environment where women's rights are actually being abused. Like, for real, man. A man in Saudi Arabia can have like 7 women. He can beat them, use them for, I don't know, whatever. It's like, it's very, very, I don't know. I don't know if it's ancient. I think it's just wrong. It's just wrong ideology in Arabia. But yeah, my point was also so like, there are real things to do about women. I mean, of course that there could be, I don't know, something to be done in Finland, but like assuming that women get beat up for like nothing in Saudi Arabia, they get to be treated like they are nothing, like they are property basically. I don't know. It's like they are. I don't know. It's very weird. It's very weird, but I've actually made this argument myself.
You know, Gad Saad, who's this guy at Concordia who is in a business school, so he can actually say what he thinks now and then. He tweeted yesterday, well, he tweeted to the Women's March, you know, because there's a little Twitter thing, you could do that, I suppose, for the organizers, and he said, why don't you go to the Middle East and have a nice march against Saudi Arabia and see how that works out for you? It's like, so you think, well, why not? Like,
you can think of this a little bit like trying to save an endangered species. It's like you're trying to save deer in whatever, in a very heavy deer populated zone. It's like, why are you trying here? There are many white rhinos that are going extinct. I mean, of course you could save a couple of deer here, but it's not that, it's the system's fault. Because this is what they say, right? It's the system that has made these women do this thing less than or whatever. It's the system's fault. So that's what I find sort of disturbing. Completely missing the point of feminism, by the way.
like, why not? Why are the radical leftists who are so much for rights everywhere, that's what they say, why aren't they complaining about Saudi Arabia, for example, which, you know, breeds a particularly pathological form of ideologically rigid Islam that basically enslaves their women, that's to put it properly. It's like, why not?
See? It's the same thing I just said.
Complain about that. Well, how about this? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so when push comes to shove, you see how much concern there is among the radical feminists for the rights of women. It's like if the pushing those rights forward.
I'm actually not sure about this. He's done his research. Like I'm not saying that he is wrong, but I'm not sure whether the leftists regard the extremist Islamist as friendly. So the enemy of the enemy is my friend, as he said. I'm not sure about that.
Doesn't also at the same time undermine the Western patriarchy, then will take the undermining and leave the damn rights behind. And so there's an insight for you about exactly what's going on at the bottom of all this. So, okay, so then there's another weird thing, and I've already sort of hit on.
He saw into his little notebook, so I think he has bullet points there. He's very emotional, so I think he wrote them down just so that he wouldn't forget. Man.
On it tangentially, it's like, well, the postmodernists don't believe in grand unifying narratives. They don't believe in narratives at all. They don't.
I don't know what this means. Doesn't believe in narrative. What's a narrative?
Care about value because they never noticed that you have to value something in order to have some hope in life, right? Because when you value something, you're pursuing it, and in the pursuit, that's where the meaning in life is, you know, because the rest of it's suffering. If you're trying to struggle upwards towards the light, it's like, well, that's something to motivate you and to protect you against the suffering. But the postmodernists don't care about any of that, and I would say it's because they don't care about suffering. So, all right.
So don't care about suffering, in what sense is it intended here? Don't care about suffering because they're suffering all the time? Or because they don't care that other people might suffer? That other people might be in pain? Like they have an idea and they mean to implement it no matter what. Or maybe the suffering is the intended purpose. I don't know.
Right, so here's the final question. It's like, well, if the postmodernists don't care about grand unifying narratives and they don't believe in identity, why in the world are they willing to believe in gender identity and sexual identity and racial identity and ethnic identity? And the answer to that is, well, they can't, but they don't care because coherence isn't on their agenda. And besides,
coherence isn't in their agenda. This is it. They are getting roasted by a scientist. So the idea is that they have an idea that they are trying to pull forth, but they don't care if this idea gets to be put down by something else for as long as this other thing actually helps them to make their first point. So if there is a second point which actually contradicts the first, but it helps the first to further rise or whatever, they don't mind that. Theoretically speaking, right?
Besides that, when push comes to shove, their postmodernism is nested inside a deeper Marxism, and so when the postmodern narrative doesn't suffice, say, to push forward the idea that Western civilization should be overturned, they just revert back to the overarching Marxism and say, well, those people are oppressed and that's a bad thing. It's like you might say, well, you're a postmodernist. It's like, you don't believe in any of that. And they say, well, yeah, I'm only a postmodernist this deep, but underneath that there's a Marxism, and I can always rely on that to fill in the gaps. And that's exactly...
Imagine having an ideology based on Marxism, man. Holy shit. Well, I guess this is exactly what you would get, right? Holy shit. Damn. I have actually not studied this, but from seeing what is happening, I kinda see every point that he's making, just from seeing how the wokes are actually dealing with everything. It's very bizarre, very, very bizarre. There are always going to be enemies, man, but why would they gain this influence? So if you are a democratic state, there are always going to be enemies, because there are evil people out there who don't want democracy. But why would they gain this influence? That's the strange part. Who would give them the microphone to speak, or who would actually listen to them? Like, what kind of right-minded person thinks that the pink hairs are actually right? It's weird, man, it's weird. Anyhow, this is where the video ends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. Jordan Peterson is OP as per usual, and I'll catch you in another one. Bye bye.